Hey everyone, I'm Robert, a real estate agent. You're about to hear about a forgotten grandfather clause that became a legal bomb. If you love it, comment Spotify for the full audiobook. Picture this. The pre-dawn quiet doesn't break with birdsong, but with a throaty roar of diesel engines. They're pouring concrete into Laurel Run, a stream that's whispered behind my family's land since Andrew Jackson was president. You taste the grit of pulverized limestone in the air, feel the vibration of machinery in your teeth, and you know, standing there in your robe, that the $60,000 you've paid in HOA fees is being used to murder something alive. It's a necessary stabilization project. HOA chairwoman Vivian Croft declares from the driver's seat of her spotless Lexus what this developer never bothered to learn. I spent 30 years with the Bureau of Reclamation. She's not controlling water. She's building a liability. 6 months later, Vivian's Georgian mansion is a swamp, her finished basement a murky aquarium, while my humble homestead sits untouched on higher ground. State investigators are circling, and that sleek concrete channel is the rope she hung herself with. What happens when the people you pay to protect your home decide to destroy it instead? My name is Eli Vance. I'm 61 years old, and for most of my life, the most complex fight I anticipated was tracking down a correct gasket for a 57 Chevy Bel Air engine block. I was wrong. The real battle was against a woman in pearl earrings who confused a suburban covenant with a hydrological degree. This land came to me from my father, Samuel. He was a Navy combat engineer who saw Iwo Jima and came back to the Tennessee hills to heal. He built a sanctuary with his hands, and the heart of it was his creek. For the 5 years since I hung up my government badge, my mornings have been a sacred ritual. First light on the back deck, steam rising from my mug, listening to Laurel Run gossip over ancient sandstone, the scent of honeysuckle and garage grease, the solid thwack of my framing hammer carried across water, so clear you could count the pebbles on the bottom. My feet know every one of the slate stepping stones he set in 1954. Claire, my wife of 28 years, teaches history to 8th graders. Her patience is bottomless, a trait that would soon be tested. Our children are launched. Lauren is a trauma surgeon in Baltimore. Ben designs stormwater systems in Atlanta. They both got their grandfather's dogged determination. The soul of this property was never the modest farmhouse or the garage overflowing with automotive projects. It was the water. 520 yards of spring-fed stream of riparian rights secured by my great-great-grandfather in 1868. Older than the county records, older than the light bulb, and infinitely older than the concept of community aesthetic standards. Then came Pine Hollow Reserve, materializing around us like a glossy, pre-weather mirage. 49 homes, averaging $950,000. Mostly refugees from congested metros, trading one set of rules for another. The paradox was almost poetic. And then there she was, Vivian Croft, 54 years old, chairwoman of the HOA board, empress of curb appeal. She arrived from a wealthy suburb with the unshakable confidence of someone who's never been told no by a zoning board. Lexus LX, plate reading closer, diamond studs that could double as surveying pins. Her husband manages private equity, a phantom who appears on weekends. Their children are enrolled in a leadership academy an hour away. Their $1.3 million federal-style home backs directly up to my creek line, a stark, chemical green lawn halting abruptly where the wild bank begins. The first salvo arrived on a Wednesday, the air smelling of cut grass and legal paper. An official HOA violation notice, delivered by certified mail. Unsanitary accumulation of automotive debris visible from adjacent lots. $200 per day until rectified. I read it twice. The bureaucratic absurdity, soaking in like a summer rain. What Vivian's high-priced attorney failed to grasp was that my deed, recorded in 1901, contained grandfather clauses for water, mineral, and usage rights that predated their association by nearly a century. They were banking on the idea that a retired civil servant who tinkered with old cars wouldn't know his own property law. Our meeting was in her office, which smelled of lavender plug-ins and ambition. With a rehearsed, pitying smile, She suggested I might be more comfortable in a community with different standards. I understood the translation, somewhere with smaller lots and quieter dreams. My response was a registered letter citing state precedent on pre-existing non-conforming use. Her retaliation was swift. An anonymous tip to the county alleged I was running an unlicensed auto repair business. A nervous inspector spent an afternoon poking through my garage, found nothing but a meticulous, if crowded, personal workshop and left. It still cost me $800 in consultation fees to prove I wasn't a chop shop. That was just Vivian testing the current. The real war began when she discovered how serious Tennessee is about water. Spring came heavy that year. The snow melt from the higher hills swelling Laurel Run until it sang a bass line under its usual melody. The sound of moving water over stone should have been peace. Instead, it was the backdrop to Vivian's next maneuver. She'd hired Clayton and Reed, a Nashville firm that specialized in environmental compliance litigation. Their strategy was brutally simple. File a complaint with the county water board alleging my unimproved creek banks created hazardous erosion and sedimentation, threatening the critical infrastructure of the downstream development. The packet arrived, 70 pages of hydrologic jargon that boiled down to make the old-timer prove his prehistoric stream isn't a threat. They aimed to force me into a $45,000 geotechnical assessment, the kind that drags on for 18 months and requires experts who vacation with the lawyers who recommended them. That evening, Claire found me thigh-deep in the creek, my waders sinking into the soft bed as I measured flow with my dad's old wooden staff. "What's the plan, Eli?" she asked, in that calm teacher voice that meant she knew trouble was brewing. "I'm thinking," I said, watching the current par around a sandstone slab my father had wrestled into place in 1959, that Vivian's fancy lawyers just made a very expensive error, and they picked the wrong retired waterman to bully. There's a thing you learn after decades in water management. Lawyers love regulatory complexity because they assume it baffles civilians. They forget some of us wrote the manuals. I called an old friend, Marcus Chun, at the Tennessee Department of Environment and Conservation. It took him less than 15 minutes. The complaint's core was based on watershed surveys from 1964, before the highway cut through, before 3 upstream subdivisions were built, before modern retention ponds altered every drainage pattern in the watershed. "Lie." Marcus laughed over phone. "These maps show a hydrological regime that disappeared with the Beatles. Should I send them the current GIS overlays? This will be humiliating for them." The contemporary data revealed my stretch of Laurel Run wasn't a problem. It was a solution. The natural meander and the rock formations my father placed acted as a passive flood mitigation system, slowing and spreading spring runoff. But the true leverage was older than any map. Tennessee water law operates on the doctrine of prior appropriation, first in time, first in right. Our documented use from 1868 was a senior right on this stretch. It trumped every claim Vivian's HOA could muster. That weekend, I spread my father's field notebooks alongside modern topographical surveys in my garage. The smell of aged paper and WD-40. I was connecting dots Clayton and Reed never saw. Monday morning, I didn't just file a defense. I filed a countersuit. I petitioned the water board, compelled the HOA to fund a proper assessment, since their grievance was founded on fraudulent data. I attached Marcus's analysis showing how their own development had increased impervious surface and flood risk. The county water master, a man named Rivera who'd been settling stream disputes since before Vivian discovered granite countertops, reviewed the file and shook his head. "Mr. Vance," he said, "these folks just tried to school a hydrologist on his own stream using maps from the Kennedy era. This might be the quickest adjudication I've ever seen." 2 weeks later, the board ruled in my favor on all counts. My water rights weren't just acknowledged, they were reinforced. The victory had unexpected ripple effects. A local paper ran a brief. HOA challenges century-old water right. Fails. Neighbors I'd only wave had started appearing at my garage door with their own tales of Vivian's reign. Citations for the wrong shade of shutter paint. Fines for unmulched flower beds. Threats over unapproved bird feeders. That evening, Claire found me by the creek at dusk, my father's old fly rod in my hand, though I hadn't cast a line. He taught me about water here, I told her how it wears down resistance, never fights head-on, but always ends up where it's supposed to be. "And where is this water supposed to be?" she asked. I smiled, listening to Laurel Run chuckle over stones that predated Vivian's family tree by millennia, flowing right to the heart of her pristine domain. You'd think a loss like that would instill caution. You'd be mistaken. Vivian Croft attended the school of escalation. Her next move was so audacious it commanded a grim respect, in the way watching someone purposefully drive off a cliff does. 3 weeks after the county told her to stand down, she called an emergency HOA meeting. She scheduled it for the 1 week Claire and I had planned to visit Lauren, our first respite since the madness began. The notice was sent to an address we'd left years prior. The agenda item read, Emergency Erosion Mitigation Assessment. What transpired was Vivian presenting altered photographs showing catastrophic bank failure along HOA property. Images that looked suspiciously like they were taken after someone had taken a backhoe to the creek's edge. She claimed her engineering consultant, who later turned out to be her brother-in-law's landscaping foreman, recommended immediate armoring with concrete to prevent imminent structural damage. The vote passed 5-1. The lone holdout, an older Polish gentleman named Leo Jankowski, called me that night. "Eli, this woman, she is not right in the head," he said, his accent thick with frustration. "She says the creek will eat our foundations. The pictures, they are not honest. A special assessment, $2,000 from each house, for concrete." I cut our trip short and drove through the night, Claire sleeping fitfully beside me. The sound reached me before the sight, the vicious staccato of jackhammers where woodpeckers should be. Then the smell, accrete dust and the sweet sick odor of torn-up root systems. I turned into my drive and saw it. Where living water had danced over amber stones, there now lay a sterile, gray concrete trench, 18 inches deep, straight as a ruler. They had entombed my father's carefully laid rocks, buried the gravel beds where brook trout spawned for generations. Claire stood beside me, silent tears cutting paths through the dust on her cheeks. "It's gone," she whispered. But being a hydrologist teaches you to think in currents and time. Water always finds the truth. I spent the next week documenting. Photos, flow measurements, water samples. More crucially, I researched the contractor, Summit Earthworks. Their record was a litany of violations. EPA fine for unauthorized wetland filling, a history of starting work before permits were final. Modifying a natural waterway requires a triple-layer cake of approvals, county, state, and often federal. Summit had skipped all three. The Clean Water Act levies fines that can hit $25,000 per day for violations. Tennessee's EPA could add another $10,000 daily. The math was stark. Every day that concrete remained was another $35,000 in potential liability. I filed complaints with every relevant agency. Then I called the local chapter of Trout Unlimited. The chapter head, a man named Carl, listened and went quiet. "Mr. Vance," he finally said, his voice tight. "That's one of the last native brook trout streams in the county. They've declared war. We're with you. Legal, technical, whatever you need." The response was swift. Within days, multiple agencies opened inquiries. An environmental law clinic from the University of Tennessee offered pro bono help. But Vivian wasn't finished. Leo warned me she was planning to pour concrete along the entire HOA-owned stretch. "If we're doing it," she argued, "we should do it properly." That night, surrounded by my father's notebooks, I studied his photos of the natural stream. He'd built a system that worked in harmony for 60 years. She destroyed it in 72 hours. And in doing so, she'd handed me federal violations on a silver platter. Desperation smells like vanilla car freshener over cold sweat. That was the scent in Vivian's real estate office at 7 a.m. when she summoned me. "Eli," she began, sliding a manila envelope across her glass desk. "We've had our differences. Perhaps we can settle this reasonably." Inside was a cashier's check for $400,000 and a non-disclosure agreement longer than a tax code. The offer: take the money, sign over my water rights, move out of the county within 6 months, and never speak of it. The threat was implicit. "Legal battles drain families, Eli," she said. "Think of Claire's position at the school. I brought a recorder. Tennessee is a one-party consent state. Her next words were pristine. If you refuse, I'll make certain every realtor, every banker in this valley knows you're an anti-growth fanatic. Your wife's career, your little garage hobby. Reputations are fragile things. That week, my garage was vandalized. Vintage carburetors smashed, tools stolen, my partially restored bell air keyed down the side. But they'd gotten sloppy. The new, discreet cameras I'd installed caught it all, including a clear shot of black Lexus idling nearby at 2 a.m. The harassment expanded. Fake, scathing reviews appeared for Claire's private art tutoring. Anonymous calls to her principal questioned her judgment. The stress was a physical weight. But engineers are methodical. Every threat, every act of vandalism was logged, time-stamped, filed. This was no longer a neighborhood spat. It was a federal case building momentum. A sharp third-year law student named Anika Patel took my case for a seminar project. Digging through the HOA's financials, she found a beautiful pattern. "Mr. Vance," she said, spreading invoices across my workbench. This concrete project was billed at $120,000. Fair market value is maybe $45,000. The difference went to consulting fees and emergency mobilization for companies linked to Vivian's real estate network. She'd found the fraud beneath the environmental crime. The real revelation, however, was in my father's files. I found a 1972 report he prepared for the County Planning Commission, warning explicitly against channelizing Laurel Run in this location. His calculations predicted it would increase downstream flood velocity by over 250% during peak runoff. Brenda's landscaper cousin had missed the work of an actual engineer, done 50 years prior. The irony was perfect. In trying to control the water, she'd built a hydraulic projectile aimed at her own neighborhood. Spring thaw was weeks away. My land, upstream and elevated, would be fine. The HOA homes downstream were about to become ground zero. Anika's forensic work grew. She found inflated contracts for landscaping, security consulting, and legal fees stretching back years. The total siphon from HOA coffers approached $200,000. That wasn't just civil fraud. It veered into racketeering. Meanwhile, Leo Jankowski arrived one evening, holding a digital recorder like a holy relic. "Eli," he said, "I did not just vote no, I recorded." The playback was devastating. Vivian's voice, cool and clear, explaining the concrete wasn't about floods. It was about curating community standards and addressing incompatible elements. She spoke of using HOA resources to force out holdouts who diminished aesthetic value. We had her. The case was now a braid of federal environmental crimes, state water law violations, and financial fraud. The EPA opened a formal file. The state attorney general sent investigators. Weather reports predicted a heavy, wet spring. The concrete channel was a cock gun. Vivian's final act of desperation was to file for a restraining order, claiming I was a menacing figure conducting surveillance on the neighborhood. The hearing was set for the very day the Weather Service predicted peak snowmelt. It was a transparent attempt to tie my hands as the disaster she'd engineered unfolded. The morning of the hearing, Laurel Run was a roaring brown torrent, fighting its concrete straitjacket. The federal courthouse in Knoxville was packed. Judge Eleanor Vance, no relation, presided. Our attorney, Kate Morrison from the Environmental Clinic, was pitiless. She played the recordings of Vivian's bribery attempts and her secret meeting admissions. She presented my father's 1972 report alongside modern modeling from professor at UT, Dr. Simmons, which confirmed the concrete would magnify flood forces exponentially. As testimony continued, emergency alerts began pinging phones in the gallery. A flash flood warning was issued for our valley. Judge Vance called a recess. When we reconvened, Kate delivered the final blow. "Your Honor, while we've been in session, the defendant's concrete channel has failed. It is currently flooding the basements of Pine Hollow Reserve. Mr. Vance's property remains dry. The physics his father predicted 50 years ago are rendering their verdict now." News footage on courtroom monitors showed the brutal irony. Muddy water backing up, pouring over foundations, while my land stood untouched. Vivian unraveled visibly, accusing me of eco-sabotage. Judge Vance had heard enough. She ruled comprehensively in my favor. Clean Water Act violations, fraud, conspiracy, intentional infliction of emotional distress. She ordered the immediate removal of all concrete, full restoration of the creek, and awarded damages and fees totaling $650,000. She also established a legal precedent protecting pre-existing water rights from HOA override. Outside, it felt like a celebration, but the real victory was quieter. That evening, as pumps groaned in the distance, Claire and I stood on our deck and listened. Under the roar of the flooded channel, you could just hear the creek's true voice, struggling to be free. "Justice as a sound," Claire said. 6 months later, Laurel Run is healed. Where concrete lay, a restored meandering channel now flows, lined with native dogwood and river cane. The community rebuilt it together. Contractors donated time. School kids planted grasses. Even some remorseful HOA members volunteered. The state legislature passed a bill strengthening protections for natural waterways on private land, dubbed Vance's Law by the press. The financial settlement funded the restoration, covered all legal costs, and endowed a scholarship in my father's name at the University of Tennessee. Vivian Croft pleaded guilty to federal wire fraud and received a 22-month sentence. Her real estate license was revoked, her assets liquidated for restitution. She now lives in Florida, far from Tennessee streams. The contractor faced massive fines. Leo Jankowski is the new HOA president, and the bylaws now require an environmental review for any project. My garage is a garage again, though the walls are covered with letters from people fighting similar battles across the country. Claire teaches a unit on local environmental history. Laurel Run, once a casualty, is now a classroom. Last week, I got a call from a man in Oregon whose HOA is trying to pave over a wetland. As I listened, I realized the story was never just about one creek. It's about what we choose to protect. So, if you're sitting on a similar story, you're not alone. The tools are there. Sometimes you just need the patience to let the truth, like water, find its own path.